session is a particularly pertinent one because, as we have discussed, keeping your business alive is just one of the many, many challenges facing travel businesses in the current climate. So here to offer top accounting advice for businesses with furloughed staff and to give tips as well on keeping your business active over the coming months, it's Elman Wall's Managing Director, Jonathan Wall.
Hi everybody, and thank you very much, Sophie. I hope everyone is safe at home and looking forward to a rather strange but probably quite welcome Easter break. I'm just going to run through fairly quickly the myriad of government announcements, which I think most people have already seen by now, but this is all in one place, and hopefully will just jog your mind to make sure you've taken any necessary action that you need to. So the first one is VAT deferral. Basically, you need to do nothing apart from do your VAT return in the normal way by the due date and cancel your direct debit to HMRC. This is an automatic deferral. You don't need to tell HMRC or government that you're not making a VAT payment, so it's automatic, but HMRC have asked you and everybody to make sure they do cancel the DD, otherwise it will get taken. So no one's going to, any VAT incurred in the current quarter or a quarter where payments due between now and the end of June, effectively payment won't get made until the end of next March. Now you can pay that whenever you want to, but the deadline's March. I suspect most companies will not make payment till March. So for some companies, that's going to make a massive difference to their cash flow. For others in travel, especially agents, may have very little impact. But if you are due a VAT repayment, get your VAT return in as soon as possible after your quarter date. You can send your VAT return in the day after the quarter ends, and HMRC will continue making repayments. So a big planning tool, a big planning tip if you are in a repayment situation, to make sure that return gets in as soon as possible. If you're under TOMS and a tour operator, it may be that your annual adjustment creates a repayment situation on that return each year. So if that falls due now, get your annual adjustment return in as soon as possible. Again, a repayment will get repaid. And if you have a transport company under TOMS, then also there is planning opportunities to have one company with a payment and the other company with a repayment situation. So the transport company most likely has a repayment that could be made. So there are some planning opportunities for tour operators especially. As people might have worked out by now, it's much easier to stop money going out of your bank account than getting new money into it. So this, I think, is possibly the most important support given by government. Time to pay has always been around for companies that can't pay tax when they fall due. It's been ramped up with coronavirus, and the telephone numbers on screen to call 0800 024 1222. HMRC had this big thing about we've got thousands of agents we specially trained to answer your calls. Then they worked out that they couldn't be sat next to each other in call centres. So I think they've reduced the capacity on that quite dramatically. We have some clients getting through very, very quickly. We have some clients really struggling to get through, but you should be calling the time to pay service and just basically logging your details. You can pretty much automatically defer PAYE and the national insurance payments for the next 3 months without having to go through the whys and the wherefores or give any kind of detail. If your company year end was July, August, September, then corporation tax will be due over the next couple of months as well. So if you don't want to make your corporation tax payment when it falls due at that time, call time to pay shortly before that payment's due. And again, you will probably be able to defer that pretty much automatically. As I said before, you don't need to do anything with respect to VAT payments. Possession's 9/10 of the law, as it so often is. So you're not going to make the tax payment anyway, but much easier to defer through time to pay, so they have a note of it rather than you having to pick up the pieces afterwards. Just a quick reminder on income tax: if you fill in a self-assessment tax return, you'll know that you normally make payments on account in January and July, with the final payment for a year being made the following January. The July payment effectively has been rolled into next January's. Again, automatic, nothing you need to do. And there's no interest charge on the period between the end of July and end of January. So if you are either self-employed or you pay payments on account under self-assessment, there's a nice cash deferral coming at the end of July that you'll be able to automatically access. So there's been quite a lot of comment in TTG about the retail, leisure, hospitality industry and rates and the grants, and you've seen quite a lot of that. The people like UK Inbound Tourism Alliance have done massive work with the local government's own association in trying to make more travel businesses included, and they've done a fantastic job into the rates. I had a client this morning who sent me their rates bill. They're actually a bar, they're not in the travel industry, but their rates bill had gone down from 80,000 to 0. So the 100% have been applied. And anybody that is effectively customer facing in travel, so it's generally meant to be around travel agents and language schools and tour operators who are trying to get on the list, will get 100% business rates holiday for the current year, irrespective of the size of their business, as long as they pay rates. So we're seeing councils making this happen now, either automatically or contacting rates payers, asking them to fill in a form or to give them some details. So it's good to see that coming through. And you can find the list of who's covered and who isn't covered pretty easily online. And the travel trade associations have been lobbying hard to make sure that more than just the shop kind of retail travel agencies are included within it. But this is being run by the local authorities, so it's important that everyone that should be on the list is on the list, and that there is standardisation across the various local authorities. So again, there's nothing that anybody listening to this should need to do except chase the council if they haven't heard from them, or they aren't on the list and think they should be on the list. So that's 100% discount for the current tax year, which so it's not a deferral, that's a gift, if you like. And then again, by now most people will be aware that there are two measures for small retail and hospitality businesses. The first one gives a grant, again, it doesn't have to be repaid, pure grant of £10,000 to a business with a rateable value under 15,000, and the grant is £25,000 where the rateable value is between 15 and 51,000. Anybody that's got a rateable value bigger than 51,000 unfortunately doesn't get anything. I've been hearing anecdotes of bed and breakfast, holiday rental, holiday cottage kinds of businesses who don't even get £10,000 a year from letting out a holiday home, if you like, are receiving £10,000 grants. So they're actually getting more than they would have earned in the period. And this is meant to help small businesses in these sectors that have been affected. Once again, being administered by the local authority, and you shouldn't need to do anything, but you might just need to kick someone to make sure that you are on a list. As I said, these are beginning to happen. So a couple of weeks after the announcements are made, we are beginning to see action and some movement, which is good. You all know all about the job retention scheme by now. I think there's a little bit of death by webinar going on. There's been 3 sets of announcements now from government, again, very easily accessible on the web and pretty clear in the Q&As there and the FAQs they're beginning to put out. There's still more questions and answers though, and there is much we still need to know, especially around directors of small businesses. The way I've been explaining the job retention scheme to most people is that this was really dreamed up for large groups with total operations shut down, like pub chain, or use Wetherspoons as an example. So no Wetherspoons can open. A lot of fairly low skilled, fairly low paid staff who are effectively now sitting on their couches but can't do any work whatsoever. And I think that is the default position. What happens to most of TTG readers is people are busy processing refunds. That's my dogs, can't help that sometimes, I'm afraid. That's the joys of working from home. But you've got people in a hybrid situation, small businesses, some people furloughed, some people not. It's all not all or nothing. Travel's got this terrible double whammy of people really working very hard, processing refunds and shifting bookings around. So they're not having any economic value for their company, but they can't be furloughed, and that seems to be a very grey area at the moment. And again, we just need more answers. This famous portal I'm going to flip through, and I'm not going to go through the two examples here because we can give these to you individually or whatever, and they're fairly easy to find. It just gives examples of someone earning less than £2,500 a month and earning more than £2,500 a month. But what companies need to do, and they probably mostly have already done this, is actually furlough their workers in the right way. The HR people and employment lawyers will remind you that this has to be done in a fair way, that if you're going to go through redundancy, then you've got more than 20 employees and the like, you've still got to go through consultation processes. And I think we're seeing, we're into week 3 now, a lot of the knee-jerk has gone, and people are sort of just getting into operating in this new, not so normal, and just getting on and try and deal with the actual practicalities. We still don't know when the portal will be launched. It's been promised in April, but there is going to be a couple of million companies all trying to access the same portal at the same time to log their furloughed employees, and then kind of expect cash like an ATM to come straight out once that happens. And I think that is just not going to happen in real life. I think my gut feel, and I'd have a bet with most people on this, is that no one watching this will receive money from the government with respect to furloughed workers in April. I think that will come in May. So having already paid all your furloughed staff their salaries in March, you've also got to pay them in April, with the high likelihood there's not going to be a repayment till May. And that's going to be a cash block on many businesses, I think. As I said, the actual mechanics of furlough has been pretty well documented through TTG, and there's lots of help sheets available from travel lawyers. So if you're self-employed, this came as an announcement a week or so after the employment scheme, and there is a relief of sorts available. The complication with self-employed people is that income is variable and less well documented by current information held by HMRC. Your rates is your rates. The local authority's got the details on that. PAYE is PAYE under the RTI system. Government has full details of every employee anyway. Self-employed people is a little bit more nebulous. It works on a historic earning system. So effectively, everyone who has submitted a tax return for the year ended 5th April 2019, so that's the return that should have been completed by the end of this January, qualifies. And if you hadn't completed it, so you were late and were getting a penalty, the Chancellor opened a window for a month after his statement, so we've still got a couple of weeks left. So if you haven't submitted your 2019 return, then do so. And effectively, this will reimburse self-employed people or give a grant to self-employed people earning what's basically 37,500 average profits, which at 80% comes down to 2,500 a month, which is the maximum, and that mirrors the job retention scheme. Now, because HMRC are busy creating the portal for furloughed, they've said they're not even going to get onto the self-employed portal till that's done. So no one's going to get any money until June or July. I think the system will open in June for you to submit or verify or certify. We don't know yet what it's going to look like, their figures, and then for a 3-month period, there's up to £2,500 a month, a taxable grant. So how are people going to get money in the meantime? The government said that people need to apply for universal credits, and I believe I've read that in the last week or so, those applications went from something like 100,000 a week to 1 million a week. So you can see everyone needing it, because everyone needs cash, and there's meant to be a 5-week lead-in to get universal credits, which is being fast-tracked. So the government's trying to make sure money gets into everybody's hands. So if we just shift on to banking for a couple of minutes. Again, lots of information out there. Everyone's talking about it. That's where we're getting most of our questions, along with the job retention scheme. It's happening. Lots of teething problems. When the Chancellor made the announcement, I don't think the banks had a Scooby what was going to happen. They then had to build systems and processes. All the banks had their own different criteria. One of the main 4 banks wanted personal guarantees on everything under £250,000. How can a director of a business give a personal guarantee when you don't know when this is going to end and you don't know how deep this is going to cut? So it's absolutely bonkers. But that has been lifted now, where another major high street bank said we don't want PGs on anything under 5 million. So there is a lack of consistency. I think the banks have taken a big kicking from government through their regulator and also through mass media to make sure that money intended to support businesses through this actually made its way through. So it's becoming easier, and if you were told no by your bank last week, I'll certainly try again next week. The banks all got their websites and their systems set up now. We have many clients who've made applications, many others who are thinking of making applications, and we have started to see some successes. I know of one travel business that got £200,000 from their bank relatively straightforwardly, and that money is expected imminently. So it's slowly beginning to happen, but like all these things, there's been quite a time lag to from conception to execution, and this is all brand new and it's all evolving. So last week the government created a larger business interruption scheme for businesses between 45 and 100 million turnover, where CBILS was originally for companies, or is for companies under 45 million. So they're trying to evolve, and then the very large companies have their own scheme with the Bank of England if you're over 500 million turnover. So it's happening. I feel a bit sorry for the banks as well. They've got their own criteria. They've also got their own staff issues and the like, and banks don't naturally go, just take the money and we'll worry about the detail later on, and that's really what they're being forced to do. So it is happening. Interest, bearing in mind base rate is pretty much zero. Some of the interest rates are still eye-watering, especially away from the big 4, but Yeah, I think that's probably the least of companies' worries at the time. At the moment, the government will effectively fund the first year's interest, and repayment is over generally around up to 5 years. And again, this business has to be viable. Another issue for the bank: if you were struggling before coronavirus, then you're not going to get banking support. So why would you get banking support now? I think that's one of the issues they need to do. Be prepared to have forecasts and latest accounts and management accounts if you can. That's the way we've been supporting a lot of our clients at the moment, is making sure accounts are up to date and helping them with projections, because the banks won't make decisions without those, and it will take time for the banks to turn around. So I think one of the major issues is these are all great ideas. It's just taking a long time for money to get to companies to support their staff, to support their supply chain, and to basically support their own viability and survival. Just the thing, again, for most of our clients, it's just struggling through so that they do get the cash on the other side and can come through. The final, or nearly final point I just want to go through is SSP. So if you unfortunately have staff who are off sick at the moment with coronavirus, government is stepping in from day one and refunding SSP, as opposed to companies having to fund it themselves. If you have got people in that situation, then you just need to check the right details off the government's websites and talk to your payroll people, HR people, or employment solicitor, and they will help you get SSP done the right way. And just a few odds and sods to wrap up with. Visually, if you're struggling, most mortgage lenders will give you a 3-month holiday. Credit card providers are being encouraged to do the same and to make it easy with you. I just got my Amex statement this morning, and it reminded me of how much interest they are charging. So if you can get some kind of relief, it's certainly worth a phone call. We have some landlord clients who receive very, very little rent money on 25th March. I read that Primark and JD Sports didn't pay anything to any of their landlords, so you can imagine what's happening at a smaller level as well. You should certainly talk to your landlord about either a holiday or just spreading the quarterly payment up front across the 3 months in the quarter. And currently, companies are protected from being evicted if you don't pay your rent in this time. You're not going to find the courts are hardly open. You're not going to find a judge that's going to take action anyway, but there is this kind of standstill where landlords are effectively becoming bankers. Really important point on the Insolvency Act, and one that I know a lot of our clients are worried about. As you're trying to keep your companies afloat and you're making key decisions, basic insolvency law says you've got to be able to pay your debts as and when they fall due. The director can't worsen the situation for creditors, and if they take wrong steps, they could be personally liable for any of those debts. And that has been basically stood still for the next 3 months. If you do something really fraudulent, it's always going to be fraudulent, and you've got the full weight of the law against you if that happens. But generally, if you're trying to make honest decisions, but it's touch and go, and let's face it, for most small businesses, it is touch and go at the moment, then you can't be prosecuted for making the company situation worse when actually you're trying to find a solution. So I think that's a really key piece of law that hasn't been widely reported. And the last point on this is that deferrals aren't grants. You know, this is money you are going to have to pay back at some point, whether it's your VAT from this quarter next year, or anything else that's deferred, or rent holidays, or anything like that. You do need to repay it. And from the insolvency guys that I've been speaking to, they're not getting, they're not inundated with companies about to fail now. I think they think their boom time will come when the amounts people have borrowed extra or deferred or rolled over have to be repaid, and they're just not able to do that. So just remember, you are going to have to pay this money back. Every other slide, there's been some detail we can go through, and there's some rules. The problem with travel at the moment is there isn't any rules, and as Sophie likes saying, it is the Wild West out there. Most companies are operating outside the PTRs because that's not what the PTRs were meant to be. We're reading about it in the press, both national and trade, every day. And look, I think there's not a I don't want to repay customers their monies. It's I can't, and if I have to do it, I'll go bust, so everyone will lose out. So I'm not going to go on about that now, but just that recognition that there aren't any rules and guidance hasn't been given, and everyone in travel's hanging on by the seat of their pants, and there's all kind of disparate views and different financial strengths. But I think, and as I said at the beginning, 90% possession's 90%. It's easier to keep money in the company than to get new monies from outside, and travel businesses are doing what they can to stay in business, which does mean that they can't repay all their customers within 14 days, which is now passed, of holidays being cancelled. So yeah, that side of things is really mucky. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up and just thank you very much for your time, and stay safe out there.
Thank you very much to Jonathan Wall for that fantastic presentation. I know there was a lot of information in there, but just to reiterate, we are going to be making the presentation available on our website as well. So don't worry if you didn't manage to catch all of it. I know there was a lot of info to take on there. He's now going to be joining us for the last live Q&A of today. Just a reminder, the chat function is great, but more for kind of liaising with each other, just to keep directing your questions to the Q&A bit. Otherwise I'll lose track of keeping hold of them. And we've had a fantastic response. We've had a lot of questions through. So we're going to try and keep and whittle through the ones that we've just had for Jonathan's presentation. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi.
That's been a brilliant couple of hours. Well done to TTG.
Oh, thank you very much. And I hope everyone else has enjoyed it as well and found it informative. So, Jonathan, we've got a few questions here, which we're just going to whittle through, conscious of time, so we are going to try and do it as speedily as we can. Someone anonymous says, how long will they defer, so the government, defer PAYE/national insurance payments for? Will it need to be paid back on instalments, and is interest applicable?
Okay, so I think 3 months is very easy to get at the moment, and maybe that's the default position, and get you 3 months, and then in 3 months' time look at a longer term position. If depends, we just don't know where we are, do we? So it depends on that. I'm actually not sure about the interest on PAYE. Interest rates are really low anyway, by the way, with the revenue. So it's only 1 or 2%. So it's not. I don't think it's a major issue. But if I can make just one point that came out on the slide that the government announced pretty much as we were recording this yesterday, Sophie, is that shifting to the furlough, the window does open on 20th of April. So the government have now said that the portal will be ready on 20th of April. I think it's going through beta testing at the moment. So it may well be that some people get some cash in by the end of April. And not early May, as I said, but let's see, there's an awful lot of people going to be going for the same thing. But generally, deferments, go for the simple 3 months. No one's going to ask you any questions whatsoever. And like everything, it will need to be repaid. It is a deferment. It's not a grant or a gift.
Yeah, that's the key thing to remember here, isn't it?
Yeah, cash flow is going to be horrendous later in this year.
Yeah.
For everybody, not necessarily now, where you think it would be worse.
That's true, because you're going to still have to make these payments later on, like you were flagging.
Yeah, and deal with rebates.
Yeah. We've got another question from Anonymous. I own a small online travel agency. It's a limited company. Because I don't have a commercial address, we have no right to access cash grant. Is this correct?
I think so. I think that the leisure and hospitality scheme is based on small rate payers. So if you're not paying rates, the local authorities won't know about you, and it's going to be difficult to access. Someone told me that if you a business centre like Regis, if you're in a serviced office, they were giving their tenants names to the local authorities. But again, I'm not sure that's going to happen. So maybe the tenants of the serviced office, because serviced offices you pay one fee to, you're not paying rents, rates and services, you're paying one monthly fee, and it may be you can get on the local authority list that way. But the way the scheme is set up, it is for rate payers. So if you don't pay rates, there's no relief they can give you against the rates. I think on the rate grant, there is a very small business rate relief grant for people that pay nothing or very low amounts. And I think you just need to find that on the government website, where it may be a 10,000 payment.
On the BS website, would they go to, or DWP?
Just go on government, just government Corona business, and you'll find it very quickly.
We've got a question from Casey. So they say, I'm a home worker and have run my business account through a personal account, Lloyds, who aren't taking new applications for business accounts. And they said, I'd like to apply for a BIL, but where would be the best place to apply for this?
I think that's going to be a real problem. The banks have got huge amounts of issues dealing with their own customers. If any of you have tried to open a business bank account recently, just takes a long time with the know your client and anti-money laundering processes. The banks don't really have the resource for it at the moment, and I would say that the banks are effectively shut for new business. They may say otherwise. So try the British Business Bank that's administering the CBILS loans has a list of 40 lenders. Mm-hmm. There's banks like AIB and Handelsbanken, who many of you may know, who actually aren't on the list, but there is 40 lenders, and some of them are specialist lenders that you will probably never have heard of. A lot of the new banks, the online banks like Starling, I don't believe are also on the approved scheme, but they've all got other lending they can make available. But I think when they've got restricted staff and essential working, opening new clients up, I think is going to be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So I think you just need to keep chipping away at your own bank. I'm not sure how helpful Lloyds have been. I've heard some mixed views on that. Keep chipping away, and I think government, as I said, is putting a lot of pressure on the banks to release money to those that meet the criteria, which is really that you have a viable business.
Okay.
It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, well, I hope that helps, Casey. We have a question here from Anonymous. Curious on Jonathan's interpretation on voluntary work. When an employee is on furlough, I understand they can't generate revenue, but if only travel was doing that at the moment. Fair point. So if they're not generating revenue, does that still count as furloughed work?
Yeah, I think there's two issues here, and let me just caveat by saying I'm not an HR specialist, I'm not an employment lawyer, so the experts may say otherwise. One, I think travel just has this quandary of there's an awful lot of staff doing an awful lot of work, but none of it is productive for the companies. And I don't think I haven't seen anywhere that clearly defines whether how you treat people in that circumstance. Because the default position is if you're furloughed, you can't do anything whatsoever. Mm. You can't do any work. It's not necessarily work that's not productive, it's any work. And I think there is a grey area. The travel particularly has this problem around productive work. But basically, if someone's furloughed, they shouldn't be doing anything at all. So you've got these non-furloughed workers doing things. The other point I would make is, most people act responsibly and do things right. I have heard stories of employers going, I'm furloughing you, but I expect you to work your normal hours and to do your work. And it is clearly wrong, and it is fraudulent. And I guess in this social media day and age, they are going to get whistle blown by somebody.
Yeah.
Because you remember, the government is giving the employers the money back. HMRC is reimbursing the companies for what they're paying out on furloughs. And if I ran a company, I wouldn't want to risk not getting that money back from HMRC by doing something that is clearly wrong and just a little bit silly. So if you're furloughed, you are meant to be furloughed and not meant to be doing anything whatsoever. I think there are some exceptions around training, but voluntary work is not do your job unpaid.
Yeah, and with social media, you can't really afford to do it. Like you say, everyone's very vocal, aren't they?
You see all these people who aren't socially distancing, and the police are getting hundreds of calls a day at neighbours who've been walking more than once a day or something like that. So you can imagine what an upset an employee is going to do
That's
to
good
their
advice.
employer.
We have another anonymous attendee. If you are a rate-paying online travel agent, can you get the business rates, holiday and grants, or do you have to be customer facing? I guess they still are customer facing, aren't they?
It depends what you do. And I think if you talk to your particular trade association, so BTA and Clive on the business travel community, you've got UK Inbound, TOA working very hard on the incoming side, and they've all got their own cases they've been making to both at a governmental level, but also with the local government association, which is the association that all the local governments belong to. The
Right.
government is funding the local authorities. Okay,
Yeah.
so if the local authority own association are saying, well, that should be in the definition, and not, it's no skin off their nose if they give it to you. It's not their money.
Yeah.
So there's been quite a lot of lobbying into the local government association by the associations to get theirs in. So I think UK Inbound and the incoming sides have had quite a lot of success. I think TMCs are working really hard. Business travel side, tour operators, it's great, but we're hoping that the LGA advice to the local authorities a tour operator should be. So a retail travel agent with a shop definitely qualifies. The rating consultant that I use in my business says, well, there's no difference to that at a travel agency and a fourth floor office getting it. So I think you just got to challenge your local authority, but they should be contacting you initially anyway.
Okay.
All these things are very subjective, subjective, and have been made up on the hoof.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's not like years and years of clarity behind them.
There was a question flagged earlier, actually, which you might be able to help with if you didn't get a chance to address, but it's for all of those people that were ex-Thomas Cook, who might now set up on their own, doing their own business now. They won't qualify for the self-employed help, will they, from the government? Because
correct. You have to have completed I always get my year wrong, a tax return for the year ended 5th April 2019.
Yeah.
Which is the return that had to be submitted by the end of January 2020. So if you started self-employment after 6th April 2019, so anybody in the tax year that just finished a day or so ago, the revenue have got no data on you. Basically, they've got no history, and unfortunately, those people aren't going to qualify under that scheme. And it looks like universal credit is probably the only help they're going to get in the short term. I'm afraid, yeah.
Okay.
I guess the only consolation is no one else is going to get any relief until at least June on this, so you're not losing out over the next couple of months, cash in timing plus wise.
Last question, because I am conscious of time. Just what tips would you give overall to a business? You know, there is a lot of government help out there, but what would your advice be to a business to keep them active over the next few months, to keep them surviving? What would your advice be?
It's so hard. And Martin covered it right at the beginning as well. I think you just got to hang in there. You've got to, we're just trying to make ourselves as visible as possible. And everyone can do that within their own communities and just give straight, honest, transparent advice, because there's no point doing anything but. And just, if someone's going to think about who you're going to use when this is all over, it's those that have acted well and responsibly and reached out. You're going to hope you're going to get that support back in spades from your customers. And it is, it's just, as everyone said, it's just managing the cash. It's not that people don't want to pay refunds, it's they can't pay refunds because they need some cash in their business. And I think what we've seen in the last couple of days is that people are getting on with running their businesses now. The first 2 weeks was very knee-jerked and panicked, and I think people are just getting into the routine. This week, next week, it is, we do need to pay key suppliers, so we can't just stop every direct debit, irrespective of what it is, and we've just got to look carefully. We've got to get cash in where we can and support. All this government support isn't happening right now. It will happen. So it's just hanging in. It's hanging in for the next couple of weeks. Just being brave, keeping positive, keep smiling. It will end. And those that have been through this a couple of times before, it's never been as bad as it is now. But we've got through it, and the travel industry and whatever has always bounced back. I guess your sole job is to make sure you are in a position to bounce back when we do come out of this. That's your sole responsibility to your team, to yourselves, to your company.
But the key thing is it will end.
It will end.
Let's finish with that one. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really do appreciate
it's a pleasure, Sophie.
Presentation. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for tuning in this afternoon. I really hope that you found today to be insightful, but most importantly, I really hope that you found it to be helpful for supporting your business, your colleagues, your employees over the coming months. At TTG Media, we really do want to continue doing everything we can to support the travel trade through this time. Please do get in touch and let us know what else we can be doing to support you and your business. Don't forget, our Coronavirus Business Support Forum is also available. I know we had a lot of questions to get through. I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get through all of them. If I tell you, we had over 100 questions at one point, so trying to get through them all. So huge apologies to those that didn't get their question answered, but please do put it on our support forum. And we have a host of experts, people who are specialists in employment law, specialists in normal travel law, just a real raft of people. So please do direct your questions there. My email is sgriffiths@ttgmedia.com. Please do feel free to get in touch with me. All that's left really for me to say now is to stay safe and to stay well. We do have, of course, challenging weeks ahead of us, but the upturn will come, and TTG Media will be here supporting you throughout. So stay safe, everybody.